And we are back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm sorry about that. I had technical difficulties with the audio. As usual, I am your host, Nelson, on this wonderful Monday morning, or at least it was wonderful until my microphone decided to just die on me for no reason in the middle of the stream, so that's a little bit embarrassing, but we will move on. So, with that, there's a lot that went on this weekend, and there's so much that I don't even have enough time to talk about all the segments that I even wanted to talk about, like, for example, Trae Young's injury, which, if you paid attention in one of my shorts that I uploaded earlier, last weekend, he recently suffered a tear in his finger and is going to be sidelined and is expected to go through surgery. But that's not one of the subjects that I'm going to cover because a lot happened over this weekend. So with that in mind, our segments are going to be, the first one is going to be about Steve Kerr and his new contract extension with the Golden State Warriors. The second segment is going to be talking about Luka Dončić because over the weekend he was getting a lot of buzz being in MVP conversations and whatnot. And in the third segment, we are going to give, as always, a quick recap of the rest of the NBA games that went down, and just give a little bit of insight on what I think of them, and if we have more time, talk about some of the best games of the weekend, because it was a long weekend of NBA games. So we also have our fourth segment as well, so be sure to stay in tune for that, and I will reveal what that is after the third segment. But before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody, as always, please remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. You can use the link in the description below or the link that's displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Once again, that's streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and get into the first segment of the show, which is going to be talking about Steve Kerr and his big contract extension with the Golden State Warriors. So obviously, Steve Kerr has been the head coach of the Warriors since 2014, and so far he's been the best coach that they've ever seen. This new contract is worth 2 years and $35 million. Is for 2 years and is worth $35 million. This effectively makes him the highest paid coach in the history of the league, with $17.5 million a year. Now, Greg Popovich does make more money than him annually, but he also holds the title as president. Therefore, he also gets some of the money that comes from being the president of the San Antonio Spurs, as well as the money that comes from being the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. But so obviously being deemed as the highest paid head coach above someone like Steve Kerr means you must have a pretty good career in basketball, and Steve Kerr is definitely Greg, pardon me. And Steve Kerr is definitely one of those players that has had an impressive career. But you wouldn't know about that necessarily if you were a casual fan, I guess you could say. And what I mean by that is that most of the time most people, as of right now, they know him more as a coach. But back in the 90s, he was a player. And not many people really remember that if they're casuals and whatnot. And that career is sort of not necessarily overshadowed by his coaching career, because his career as a player was pretty good, and it was really good. It was great, in fact. But his career as a coach is just so much more notable than his time as a player, and I'll get more into that as well. So he was most famous. The most famous team that he was on was the '96 Bulls, and he was on the '96 Bulls. He was on the Bulls from '96 all the way up to '98. So obviously he won 3 straight championships with Michael Jordan. And if you were an old head at the time, if you're an old head now, or you knew the NBA and followed the NBA back then at the time, you would know that Steve Kerr might have saved Michael Jordan on a couple of shots that late in the game that Michael Jordan didn't end up taking. But honestly, if you're an MJ fan, you'd probably try to forget about that because, if you're an MJ fan, you probably don't like LeBron, and you look at LeBron like, oh, LeBron passes up an open shot. Oh, he doesn't have the killer instinct. Oh, that type of thing. But he bailed I wouldn't say bailed. By definition, by what Jordan fans give bailed out, like the definition that they give bailed out for LeBron when they're using it for LeBron, this fits that description. But I don't want to say bailed out because obviously, like Michael Jordan, there was a lot more to the game than just the final minutes. And just the fact that Steve Kerr was able to hit the important shot in the final minutes is just important. Is just an important part of teamwork, in my opinion. Some people consider that getting bailed out. Other people consider that just making the right play. You guys have your own opinion on that. I have mine. But he was a very vital piece to the team and one of the best three-point shooters at the time in a league that wasn't relatively known for three-point shooting. So 96 Bulls all the way up until 98. And obviously he's known nothing but win while playing with Michael Jordan. And that didn't stop him from winning though. Leaving the Chicago Bulls in 1998, he went to go play for the San Antonio Spurs, who just so happened to also be a dynasty, having Tim Duncan and David Robinson in the lineup, as well as actually more so Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was much more of a factor in that than and not to mention. Later in 2003, they didn't end up having David Robinson, and they ended up getting a lot more pieces to help them win championships. Now, obviously, he's very well known for winning. Steve Kerr, throughout his entire career, he's done absolutely nothing but win, and he is one of the only players. If I remember correctly. Actually, no, I lied. He did have David Robinson in 2003. That's my bad. I completely forgot. But if I remember correctly, I believe that Steve Kerr is one of the very few players that wasn't on the Boston Celtics, like the old Boston Celtics back when they had Bill Russell, that can say that he won 4 straight championships in a row. Because Michael Jordan only ever won 3 in a row. He won 6 championships, but he only won them in two sets of 3. So, and Kobe won 3 straight, and not many other players that were towards the modern NBA and in general that weren't on that Boston Celtics team can say that they won 4 straight titles. And that's obviously one of the best achievements that you could ever have. And not to mention that he also ends up winning 5 rings as an NBA player. Now, some people might make the argument, oh, he was a bus rider. Like, he played with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and then after that he played with Tim Duncan and David Robinson. But obviously, while those players were very important to their team, obviously, Michael Jordan was very important to the Bulls, Tim Duncan was very important with San Antonio, Steve Kerr still had a job to do, and the fact that, it's evident that it's more evident now that he's a winner given his coaching career. Now, back then, you might be able to argue, yeah, he was just riding the bus. But as a coach, he really brought that. He still was able to bring that winning culture towards any team that he's been a part of. But again, there is also argument in saying that it's not entirely him that's bringing the winning culture, and it's just he's lucky to be surrounded by all of this talent, which I will get to in a second. So, again, as I mentioned previously, the Warriors hired Steve Kerr in 2014. So he's already been a part of 2 dynasties. As an NBA player, he's been a part of 2 dynasties. I think it's safe to say that the Chicago Bulls And the Chicago Bulls are a dynasty, and the San Antonio Spurs were also a dynasty. Now, the Spurs is a little bit more complicated, but the reason why I've considered them like a dynasty is because they've gone through an entire decade with Tim where they just constantly made the playoffs and they were always a threat to winning the title. Now, I guess that's not entirely like the definition of a dynasty, but a dynasty, to me at least, is a team that's able to accumulate multiple championships. Now, I'm not sure if people want to give a time frame to that, like multiple consecutive championships or multiple championships within the span of 4 years or something like that. But that organization with Tim Duncan, with Manu Ginobili, with Tony Parker, when they got each of them, of course, and when they had David Robinson and all the other assets, I feel like it's safe to call that team a dynasty, given how much of a threat that they always were in every single playoff series that they've played. Now, he was part of two, and he goes ahead and builds his own in California with Steph Curry as the catalyst. And that's the part that I was going to mention, saying that Steve Kerr might have benefited in having extreme talent on his team. It obviously helps that Curry is at his peak at the time that Steve Kerr gets the head coaching job. It just so happens, right? And now the argument could be that, Steph Curry was just on the rise and Steve Kerr got lucky. But another argument could also be that Steve Kerr took advantage of this and was able to coach him and make the offense revolve better around the team and his play style and efficiency, because I'll get into the offense a little bit later and you'll understand why I don't say it revolves around him, because it doesn't necessarily revolve around him, which is the most unique things about Steve Kerr's coaching methods. But again, he coached Curry at his peak. He coached the only unanimous MVP that the league has ever seen. And I feel like that should definitely mean something, because coaches are able to empower a player to be great, and they run the plays to allow the player to be great. Now, unfortunately, that year, it didn't end really well for him, as well. He does have a lot of records and a lot of accolades and a lot of positive accolades. He also has that one negative accolade that he cannot shake, where he is the only head coach to ever blow a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals. Now, obviously, this didn't really bother him because he continued to win on right afterwards, beating LeBron 2 straight Finals appearances directly after that. He had a little bit of help with KD, but in the end, it is what it is. And in the end, 3-1 also doesn't look that bad, because that's the record that Steve Kerr has when he's up against LeBron for the 4 straight years that they've matched up in the finals. Well, not they matched up, but their teams matched up. You know what I mean? And now, obviously, he had a little bit of help from KD to beat LeBron, but again, he didn't stop winning, as he would go ahead and win another championship with the Golden State Warriors again, and this time in 2022 with Steph Curry getting the Finals MVP, showing that they don't need Kevin Durant in order to win. And I was talking about their offense and how Steve Kerr is sort of the one to empower players to be great. I don't know what exactly it is. It might be the Warriors drafting. It might be Steve Kerr's coaching. It might be both. But a lot of the players that they've gotten from drafting have been very, very good for their team. And not to mention, a lot of players that were previously thought to be not good or mediocre have also been very, very good when coached under Kerr. Klay Thompson, he was drafted by the Warriors. No one really expected him to be this so much of a threat from beyond the three. And the same thing applies with Steph Curry. And people wonder how they're able to do all of these things, and Steve Kerr empowers that in the offense that they run. They don't run an isolation heavy lineup. Like, they don't run an isolation heavy offense. They do occasionally, because Steph Curry is very good at handling the ball, but most of their offense is derived from off-ball actions. They don't force you to play one-on-one. They force you to play 3-on-3. So they'd have Curry run around the screen. They'd have a passer try to pass to him, or Curry or Clay, as a matter of fact, and they would end up shooting the open three off the dribble. Now, obviously, like, before Steph Curry entered the league, this was seen as a shot that's like really difficult and not a recommended shot for teams to take. However, Steph Curry, obviously, since he was so good, kept taking that shot, and he kept making those shots. And as a coach, you either have the option to let him keep taking that shot, or to just force him to sort of like take the good shots at the time. And Steve Kerr, given the fact that he was a three-point shooter in his era, understood the value of the three-point shot. So he was able to sort of like empower Steph to like shoot the three. If you're open, shoot it. You have the green light to shoot it, and the results have been nothing but positive so far on Steve Kerr's perspective. Not to mention, like, all of the players that he's coached under have arguably, like, they've all been playing, like, they play like a team, and again, they just keep winning. And that's sort of the main thing around Steve Kerr. It's just that he keeps on winning. He keeps finding ways to win. Doesn't matter what lineup you give him, it seems like he always, if you just put Curry in there, you always get a win with him in the finals, at least once. And after the trade with Kevin Durant, I'm going to admit, I didn't really think that Golden State was going to win another title because, like, again, I thought that, like, while KD's championships, like, they were a little bit illegitimate or a little bit weak, in my personal opinion, he won the finals MVPs in both of those finals appearances. So he was the best player on the winning team. So that I had to put respect on that, and it had to mean something. But that was until they ended up winning without him, proving that they can still be great without him, and they didn't need him to begin with. And this was because of the amazing coaching and, like, the amazing play from Jordan Poole. Now, if you notice, Jordan Poole now with the Washington Wizards and his head coach, he's really bad. He's not the same player that he was. Now, the argument for that could have been like, oh, the last year with Golden State and Draymond Green, that might have messed him up. But again, like, the coaching is like that's a part of it. And we see the rest of, like, the Washington Wizards and how that team is doing. It's like they're not going anywhere. But that's all the time I have for this one segment. So tune in for the second segment where I go on and talk about Luka and his MVP chances. So I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign.